Sister said, "Go find another table," at family dinner because I was adopted and gave me the $3,270 bill ***. Go find another table. This one's for family, not charity cases. My sister Veronica's words cut through the noise of Belmont's restaurant like a knife. 20 people at our family table turned to stare at me. Some laughed. Others looked away. My mother smiled. My father adjusted his glasses and said nothing. And I stood there, holding my purse, feeling like that scared 5-year-old girl all over again. The one they took in but never really wanted. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 28 years old. And that night, standing in Seattle's fanciest restaurant, I learned the hardest truth about family. Sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who promise to love you. But here's what they didn't know. What nobody knew. In exactly 48 hours, everything would change. The power would shift. And the family who spent 23 years making me feel worthless would be the ones begging me for help. This is that story. Let me take you back to the beginning. Not to that restaurant. Further back. To the day everything started. I was 5 years old when the accident happened. My real parents, David and Helen Chin, died in a car crash on Highway 5. One moment they were there. The next, they were gone. I don't remember much about them anymore. Just flashes. My mom's perfume. My dad's laugh. The way they both said my name. After they died, I went into foster care for 3 months. Then the Bennetts came along. Richard and Patricia Bennett. They seemed perfect on paper. Big house. Stable income. 2 kids of their own who needed to learn about giving back. That's what the social worker told me. That I was lucky. That this family wanted to help me. What she didn't tell me was why they really took me in. The Bennett house was enormous. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a pool in the backyard. My new sister Veronica was 10. She had blonde hair and her mother's sharp eyes. My new brother Marcus was 8. Quiet. Always watching. They gave me the smallest bedroom. The one at the end of the hall that used to be storage. Patricia said it was temporary until they renovated. 23 years later, that renovation never happened. The first few months were okay. I was too numb to notice the little things. How Veronica got new clothes while I wore hand-me-downs. How Marcus got violin lessons while I got nothing. How their family photos stayed on the walls, but none included me. By the time I turned 7, the pattern was clear. I wasn't their daughter. I was their project. Their good deed. The thing they could point to when they wanted to feel generous. School was hard. Kids asked why I looked different from my family. Why my last name was Chun, but theirs was Bennett. They asked if I was adopted, and when I said yes, some of them treated me like I was broken. Like there was something wrong with me that made my real parents leave. Veronica made it worse. She told everyone at school that her parents felt sorry for me. That they rescued me from a terrible life. She made it sound like I should be grateful every single day. And Patricia and Richard? They never corrected her. Growing up in that house taught me to be invisible. To take up as little space as possible. To never ask for anything. Because asking meant being reminded of everything they'd already given me. The roof over my head. The food on my plate. The clothes on my back. When I was 12, I asked if I could join the soccer team. It cost $200 for equipment and fees. Patricia looked at me like I'd asked for the moon. "Claire, honey, we just paid for Veronica's cheerleading camp and Marcus's summer program. Maybe next year." Next year never came. When I was 14, I wanted to go on the class trip to Washington, D.C. It was $500. Richard sat me down and explained that money doesn't grow on trees. That I needed to understand they had 3 children to support now, not just 2. That sacrifices had to be made. Veronica went to Paris that same summer. I learned to work for everything I wanted. At 15, I got my first job at a coffee shop. Saved every penny. Bought my own clothes. Paid for my own school supplies. Patricia said it built character. That I was learning valuable lessons about responsibility. What I was really learning was that I was on my own. High school was when things got really bad. Veronica became popular. Head cheerleader. Homecoming queen. Everyone loved her. And she loved reminding me that I was nobody. Just the adopted kid who worked at the coffee shop. She had parties at the house. Big ones. I wasn't invited to those either. I'd stay in my room, listening to music blasting downstairs, watching kids from school have fun in my own house while I hid upstairs like I didn't exist. Once, I came down to get water. Veronica saw me and announced to everyone, "That's Claire. My parents adopted her. She's basically the help." Everyone laughed. I went back upstairs and cried until I couldn't breathe. The worst part? Patricia heard the whole thing. She was in the kitchen, and she said nothing. When I graduated high school, I had a 4.0 GPA, top of my class. I got accepted to the University of Washington with partial scholarships. I just needed help with the rest. About $15,000 a year. I sat Richard and Patricia down and showed them everything. My acceptance letter. My scholarship offers. My plan to work part-time while studying. Richard looked at my papers and set them down. "Claire, we'd love to help, but we're already paying for Veronica's college. And Marcus will be starting in 2 years. We simply can't afford 3 tuitions." Veronica went to Stanford. Full ride from mom and dad. Private dorm. New car. Everything. I went to community college. Took out loans. Worked 40 hours a week on top of classes. It took me 6 years to get my 4-year degree. Nobody came to my graduation. By the time I was 25, I'd built a decent life for myself. I worked as a graphic designer for a small tech company. Made okay money. Had my own apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Completely mine. I stayed in touch with the family because, well, they were all I had. No matter how much they hurt me, they were the only family I knew. Stupid, right? But that's how it works when you're adopted. You're always afraid that if you lose this family, you'll have nobody. Which brings me back to that restaurant. It was Veronica's 33rd birthday. She'd made reservations at Belmont's for the whole family. Parents, grandparents, cousins, everyone. About 20 people total. She called me 2 days before. "Claire, we're having my birthday dinner Friday night at 7. You should come." Not, "I want you there." Not, "It wouldn't be the same without you." Just, "You should come." I almost said no, but something in me still hoped. Still thought maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time they'd actually want me there. I dressed carefully. Bought a new dress I couldn't really afford. Did my hair and makeup. Took an Uber because I knew parking downtown would be impossible. When I walked into Belmont's, the first thing I noticed was how beautiful everything was. Crystal chandeliers. White tablecloths. Fresh flowers on every table. The kind of place where you whisper instead of talk. I spotted my family at a long table near the windows. Richard saw me first. He waved, but it wasn't warm. Just acknowledgement. I walked over, smiling, ready to wish Veronica happy birthday. That's when she said it. "Go find another table. This one's for family, not charity cases." The table went quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then Marcus laughed. Then Patricia. Then everyone else joined in like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. "Veronica, stop," I said quietly, my face burning. "That's not funny." "Oh, come on, Claire. Don't be so sensitive." Veronica waved her hand dismissively. "We're just joking around. You know I love you." But her eyes said something different. Her eyes said she'd been waiting for this moment. "Sit down," Richard said firmly. "You're making a scene?" I sat. What else could I do? Leave? That would just prove Veronica right. That I couldn't take a joke. That I was too sensitive. The waiter came by. Everyone ordered. Expensive steaks. Lobster. The priciest wines on the menu. I ordered a chicken dish. The cheapest thing I could find. Dinner was torture. Nobody talked to me. They talked around me. Veronica bragged about her new promotion. Marcus discussed his latest investment properties. The cousins showed off engagement rings and baby photos. When I tried to mention my work, Patricia cut me off. "That's nice, dear. Marcus, tell us about the house you just bought." By dessert, I was numb. This was normal. This was always how it went. I was there, but I wasn't really there. Then the waiter brought the check. He set it right in front of me. I stared at it, confused. I think there's been a mistake?" Veronica's smile was sharp. "No mistake. You're paying tonight." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Consider it your contribution to the family," she said sweetly. You know, since you're always taking and never giving back. I couldn't breathe. Taking? I've never taken anything from any of you. Please. Veronica rolled her eyes. Mom and Dad gave you everything growing up. A home.
Food. Clothes.
Education. And you never even said thank you. I worked for everything I have, I said, my voice shaking. You know that. Just pay the bill, Claire, Richard said tiredly. Don't make this difficult. With trembling hands, I opened the leather folder. $3,270. I felt sick. That was almost my entire savings. Rent was due in a week. I had student loans, car insurance, groceries. I can't afford this, I whispered. Of course you can, Veronica said brightly. You just told us about that new client. The $5,000 contract, remember? That contract was spread over 4 months. And most of it went to business expenses. This bill would destroy me financially. But everyone was watching, waiting. Patricia sighed dramatically. Claire, really? After everything we've done for you, you can't even buy us one dinner? The guilt hit me like a wave. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was ungrateful. Maybe I did owe them. I pulled out my credit card. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. The waiter took it quickly, like he could sense my humiliation. When he brought it back, I signed the receipt. $3,270 plus tip. $3,500 total. My entire safety net.
Gone.
Well, that was lovely, Patricia said, standing up. Same time next month? Next month. They expected this to happen again. I opened my mouth to say no, to finally stand up for myself. But before I could speak, a voice cut through the noise. Not so fast. Everyone turned. An elderly woman stood at the end of the table. She was short, maybe 5 feet tall, with white hair pulled into a bun. She wore an expensive suit and held a cane, though she didn't seem to need it. Who are you? Veronica demanded. The woman smiled. It wasn't friendly. My name is Dorothy Chen, and Claire is my granddaughter. The table went completely silent. Chen. My real family's last name. I don't understand. I managed to say. Dorothy walked slowly toward me. Her eyes never left the Bennett family. Your father David was my son, she said gently. When he and your mother died, I was overseas on business. By the time I returned, you'd already been placed with this family. I've been looking for you for 23 years, Claire. Tears filled my eyes. You have? I never stopped looking. And 6 months ago, I finally found you. She turned to the Bennetts. I've been watching, observing, trying to understand what kind of people you are. Patricia's face went pale. We've given Claire a wonderful home. You've done nothing but use her, Dorothy interrupted coldly. I've watched you exclude her from family events. Make her work for everything while you spoiled your biological children. Treat her like a servant instead of a daughter. That's not true, Richard protested weakly. Dorothy pulled out her phone and set it on the table. Would you like me to play the recordings? I have dozens, including the one from 10 minutes ago where your daughter called my granddaughter a charity case. Veronica's face turned red. Here's what's going to happen, Dorothy continued. Claire is coming with me. Tonight. And you're going to return every penny she just spent on this dinner. We don't have to do anything, Veronica snapped. Dorothy smiled again. That cold, terrifying smile. You're right. You don't have to. But then I'll have my lawyers look into the trust fund. The one Claire's parents set up before they died. The one that was supposed to go toward her care and education. The one that your parents somehow gained access to. The color drained from Patricia's face. That's right, Dorothy said softly. I know about the $800,000. I know you spent it on your biological children while Claire wore secondhand clothes and took out student loans. And I know that's fraud, punishable by prison time. The table erupted. Veronica started yelling. Marcus looked sick. Richard tried to speak, but nothing came out. I sat there, trying to process what I'd just heard. $800,000. My parents had left me money, and the Bennetts stole it. Dorothy held out her hand to me.
Come, Claire.
Let's go home. I took her hand. It was warm and steady. As we walked out of that restaurant, Veronica shouted after us, "You can't do this. We'll fight you. We'll." "Try it," Dorothy called back. "I have more lawyers than you have brain cells." The entire restaurant watched us leave. For once, I didn't care who was staring. Outside, a car waited. A beautiful black Mercedes with a driver. "This is real," I asked Dorothy. "You're really my grandmother?" "I really am." She cupped my face with her small hands. "And I'm so sorry it took me this long to find you. But I promise you, Claire, those people will never hurt you again." We got in the car. As we drove away from Belmont's, I looked back once. Through the window, I could see the Bennett family arguing, pointing fingers, falling apart. And for the first time in 23 years, I didn't feel guilty about it. The next morning, I woke up in a bedroom bigger than my entire apartment.
Silk sheets.
Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Washington. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. Then Dorothy knocked on the door. "Good morning, sweetheart. I hope you slept well." I sat up, still wearing the borrowed nightgown her housekeeper had given me. "Is this really happening?" She smiled and sat on the edge of the bed. "It's really happening, and we have a lot to discuss." Over breakfast on her terrace, Dorothy told me everything. After my parents died, she'd been in Hong Kong closing a business deal. She'd been building a tech company for 30 years, and this was the biggest merger of her career. By the time she got news of the accident, I'd already been placed in emergency foster care. "I flew back immediately," she said, her voice tight with old pain. But the system moved slowly. And Richard and Patricia moved fast. They had connections. Money. They expedited the adoption before I could even file for custody. "Why didn't you fight it?" I asked. "I tried. For 2 years, I fought in court, but they'd already finalized everything. And their lawyers argued that you needed stability, not an elderly grandmother who traveled constantly for work." She looked away. "I failed you, Claire. I should have fought harder." I reached across the table and took her hand. "You're here now." She squeezed back.
Yes.
"And I'm not letting you go again." Dorothy explained that she'd sold her company 3 years ago for an enormous sum. She'd been searching for me ever since, hiring private investigators, going through adoption records, following every lead. 6 months ago, I found you. You were living in that small apartment, working so hard, and I wanted to rush in immediately. But I needed to know what kind of people the Bennetts were first. So I watched. She'd seen everything. The family gatherings where I was excluded. The holidays where they forgot to invite me. The way Patricia talked about me to her friends like I was a burden they'd nobly taken on. And last night, when I saw what they did at that restaurant, I knew I'd waited long enough. "The trust fund," I said quietly. "My parents really left me money?" Dorothy's expression hardened. $850,000, to be exact. It was supposed to be managed by trustees and used solely for your benefit. Education, medical care, basic needs. The Bennetts were never supposed to touch it. But they did. They forged documents, made themselves the trustees, and spent nearly every penny on Veronica and Marcus while you got nothing. She pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "My lawyers have been building a case. We have bank records, forged signatures, everything. If we take this to the prosecutors, Richard and Patricia will go to prison." I looked through the documents. Years of transactions. Private school tuition for Veronica. Marcus's car. A vacation home. All paid for with my money. "What do you want to do?" Dorothy asked gently. I closed the folder. "I don't know. Part of me wants them to pay for what they did. But part of me just wants to move on." "You don't have to decide today.
Take your time.
Figure out what justice means to you." We spent the rest of that day talking. Really talking. Dorothy told me about my parents, about my father's sense of humor, my mother's kindness. She showed me photos I'd never seen before, videos of them when they were young. "They loved you so much," she said, tears in her eyes. "They would be so proud of who you've become. Despite everything, you stayed kind. That's rare, Claire." That night, Dorothy's lawyer came by. His name was James Fisher, and he'd been working on my case for months. "We can file criminal charges tomorrow if you want," he said. The evidence is overwhelming. The Bennetts will definitely face jail time. What about the money? I asked. Can we get it back? Some of it. Maybe half. The rest has been spent on depreciating assets. But we can secure a judgment that would garnish their wages for years. I looked at Dorothy. What do you think I should do? I think, she said carefully, that you should do whatever helps you heal. If that means prosecution, we'll prosecute. If that means walking away, we'll walk away. This is your choice, sweetheart. I thought about Richard and Patricia, about how they'd taken me in, not out of love, but out of greed. How they'd stolen my parents' money and spent it on their own children while making me feel like I owed them everything. I want them to know what they did, I said finally. I want them to face consequences. But I don't want to spend years in court battles. I don't want them to have that much space in my life anymore. James nodded. We could offer a settlement. They admit to the fraud, they pay back what they can, and they face civil penalties. No jail time, but their reputation would be destroyed. And you'd be free to move on. That sounds good, I said. Over the next week, James handled everything. He contacted the Bennett's lawyer and presented our case. The evidence was so strong they couldn't deny it. Richard and Patricia agreed to pay back $400,000 over the next 10 years.
They'd also sign a
legal document admitting to fraud and relinquishing any parental rights or claims to me. Plus, they'd pay my legal fees. Veronica and Marcus weren't directly liable since they hadn't known about the fraud. But they'd benefited from it, and everyone would know. The news spread through the family, like wildfire.
Cousins called me.
Aunts I barely remembered reached out. Everyone suddenly wanted to know how I was doing. Only one person's call mattered. It came 2 weeks after the settlement was finalized. Patricia's number flashed on my screen. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Claire? Her voice was small. Broken. Claire, please. We need to talk. I don't think we have anything to talk about, I said calmly.
Please.
Just listen. We made mistakes, I know that. But we did love you. In our own way. I laughed. It came out bitter and harsh. You stole from me, Patricia. You took money my parents left for me and spent it on your own kids. You made me feel worthless for 23 years. That's not love. That's cruelty. We were trying to give everyone a good life. We thought. You thought I wouldn't find out. You thought you'd get away with it. Well, you didn't. Richard lost his job, she said desperately. The school board let him go when they heard about the fraud. Veronica's firm put her on leave. We're losing the house, Claire. Everything's falling apart. Good. The word almost came out. But I stopped myself. That's not my problem, I said instead. You made your choices. Now you live with them. You're really not going to help us? After everything we did for you? And there it was. Even now, even after everything, she still believed I owed her. Goodbye, Patricia. Don't call me again. I hung up, blocked the number. Blocked Richard, Veronica, and Marcus too. Dorothy found me on the terrace, staring at the lake. You did the right thing, she said softly. Then why do I feel so awful? Because you're kind. Because even after everything they did, you still have empathy. That's not a weakness, Claire. That's strength. She sat beside me. I want to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Okay. Would you like to stay here? With me? Not as a guest. As family. As my granddaughter. Tears filled my eyes. Really? Really? I'm 78 years old, Claire. I don't know how much time I have left. But however long it is, I want to spend it with you. I want to make up for all the years I missed. If you'll let me. I threw my arms around her.
Yes.
Yes, I want that. She held me tight. Then welcome home, sweetheart. Welcome home. The next 6 months changed everything. I moved into Dorothy's house permanently. Got my own wing, actually. She insisted. I quit my job at the tech company and started working with Dorothy's investment team. Turns out I had a head for business. Who knew? Dorothy introduced me to everyone. Her friends. Her colleagues. People who'd known my father. For the first time in my life, I felt connected to my real family. My real history. I also started therapy. Processing 23 years of trauma wasn't easy. There were hard days. Days when I questioned everything. Days when I felt guilty for cutting off the Bennetts. But slowly I healed. Dorothy and I developed routines. Sunday morning breakfast on the terrace. Wednesday evening movies. Friday night dinners with her friends who became my friends. She taught me about the business world, about investing, about building wealth not just for yourself, but for future generations. Your father would have inherited all of this, she told me one night. But now it's yours, Claire. Every penny. And I'm going to teach you how to manage it wisely. I learned that Dorothy was worth over $3 billion. $3 billion. It was an incomprehensible number. I don't need that much, I said, overwhelmed. It's not about need. It's about legacy. Your parents built something. I built something. And now you're going to continue that. Not because you have to, but because you can. She set up trusts, foundations, investment accounts, all in my name. When I'm gone, she said matter-of-factly, you'll be one of the wealthiest women in Seattle. But more importantly, you'll have the power to do good. Real good. That's what matters. I thought about the Bennetts sometimes, about how they were struggling, how their lives had fallen apart. Part of me felt satisfied, but mostly, I just felt sad. Sad that they'd chosen greed over love. Sad that they'd wasted 23 years treating me like garbage when they could have had a real daughter. Their loss became my gain.
But it didn't have to be that way.
Dorothy got sick in month 7. It started with fatigue. Then the diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. How long? I asked the doctor, my voice shaking. 6 months. Maybe a year with treatment. Dorothy chose treatment. Not because she thought it would work, but because it gave us more time together. I'm not afraid, she told me as we left the hospital. I've lived a full life. But I'm grateful I got to spend this last part with you. The next months were precious. Hard, but precious. Dorothy grew weaker, but her mind stayed sharp. We spent hours talking. About everything. About nothing. About the life I'd have after she was gone. Don't let this money change who you are, she said one afternoon as we sat in her room. You were kind when you had nothing. Stay kind when you have everything. I will, I promised. And Claire? Don't waste energy hating the Bennetts. They're already living their consequences. You focus on building something beautiful. She died on a Tuesday morning in early spring. Peaceful. Holding my hand. I'd known her for exactly 9 months. And she'd given me more love in that time than the Bennetts had in 23 years. The funeral was huge. Hundreds of people came to pay respects. Business leaders. Philanthropists. People whose lives Dorothy had touched. I gave the eulogy. Talked about her kindness. Her strength. Her determination to find me and bring me home. She taught me that family isn't about blood, I said, looking out at the crowd. It's about love. Real love. The kind that shows up. The kind that sacrifices. The kind that never gives up. The Bennetts didn't come. I hadn't expected them to. After the funeral, James Fisher read the will. Everything went to me. The house. The investments. The foundations. All $3 billion. She wanted you to know, James said, handing me a sealed letter, that this isn't just money. It's freedom. Freedom to be whoever you want to be. To help whoever you want to help. To build the life you deserve. I opened the letter alone that night. My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm sorry I didn't have more time with you. But I'm grateful for every moment we did have. You're going to be tempted to give this money away. To prove you're not like them.
Don't.
You earned this. Not through blood or luck, but through character. Through being kind when the world was cruel. Through surviving when others would have broken. Use this money wisely. Build something meaningful. Help people who need it. But also live. Travel. Fall in love. Buy that ridiculous expensive coffee you think I don't know about. Be happy. That's all I ever wanted for you. Happiness. I love you, sweetheart. Your father would be so proud. Always, Grandma Dorothy. I cried until I couldn't breathe. Then I got up, wiped my tears, and started planning. 1 year after Dorothy's death, I opened the Chin Foundation. It focused on helping adopted children, specifically children trapped in abusive or neglectful adoptive homes. We provided legal support, therapy, educational funding, emergency housing, everything I wished I'd had growing up. The foundation grew quickly. We helped hundreds of kids in the first year alone, got them out of bad situations, connected them with loving families, gave them the support they needed to heal. I also started speaking publicly about adoption, about the reality that not every adoption is a fairy tale, that some people adopt for the wrong reasons, and that we need better oversight, better protection for vulnerable children. The media loved the story. Former adopted daughter inherits billions, uses fortune to help other adopted kids. It was everywhere. That's when the Bennetts reached out again. This time, it was Veronica. She sent an email to the foundation. Dear Claire, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say this.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for everything. For how we treated you.
For the things I said.
For making you feel like you didn't belong. I've spent the last year thinking about what we did, about the money we stole, about the childhood we took from you. And I'm ashamed. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see how wrong we were. Mom and Dad lost everything. The house, their savings, their reputation. Marcus and I are starting over from nothing. And maybe that's fair. Maybe that's justice. But I wanted you to know that I'm glad you found Dorothy. I'm glad you got the family you deserved, even if it couldn't be us. I hope you're happy, Claire. I really do. Veronica. I read that email 10 times.
Part of me wanted to respond, to tell her it was too little, too late. That sorry doesn't fix 23 years of cruelty. But another part of me remembered Dorothy's words. Don't waste energy hating them. So I didn't respond. But I didn't delete it either. I let it exist. Acknowledgement without absolution. And I moved on. 5 years after Dorothy's death, my life was unrecognizable. The Chin Foundation had helped over 5,000 children. We'd lobbied for stronger adoption oversight laws in 3 states. We'd created a network of support for adoptees dealing with trauma. I'd also found love. His name was Daniel. He was a child psychologist who worked with the foundation. Kind. Patient. Nothing like the Bennetts. We got married in Dorothy's garden. Small ceremony. Just friends and people who mattered. As I stood there in my wedding dress, I thought about how different my life could have been. If Dorothy hadn't found me, if she hadn't been in that restaurant that night, I'd probably still be struggling in that small apartment. Still trying to win the love of people who would never give it. Still believing I was worthless. But I wasn't that person anymore. I was Claire Chin, granddaughter of Dorothy Chin, director of the Chin Foundation. Someone who mattered. Someone who helped others. Someone who knew her worth. The Bennetts never fully recovered. Richard took a job at a community college, teaching basic physics. Patricia worked retail. Veronica and Marcus both moved to different cities, trying to escape the scandal. I heard about it all through mutual acquaintances. And every time I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger.
Just nothing. They'd become strangers.
People I used to know.
Sometimes I thought about that night at Belmont's. About standing there, humiliated, holding that $3,000 bill. I thought about how small I'd felt. How worthless. And then I thought about everything that came after. That bill cost me $3,000. But it bought me freedom. It exposed the truth. It brought Dorothy into my life. Best $3,000 I ever spent. Now, years later, people ask me what I learned from all of this. I learned that family isn't given. It's chosen. I learned that money doesn't make you better or worse. It just reveals who you already are. I learned that kindness isn't weakness. It's the hardest, strongest thing you can be. And I learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the doorway to the best thing. The Bennetts thought they could make me feel small forever. Thought they could keep me in that tiny room at the end of the hall, wearing hand-me-downs and saying thank you for scraps. They were wrong. I'm not small. I never was. I'm Claire Chin. And this is my life now. My real life. The one I was always meant to have. And it's beautiful.
So let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you? Have you ever been made to feel like you owe someone just for existing? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your story might help someone else feel less alone. If this story touched you, hit that like button right now. And if you want to hear more real stories about family betrayal, loyalty, and justice, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't determined by how others treat them. Sometimes the family that hurts you the most is the one you need to leave behind. Thank you for watching. Remember, you deserve people who choose you, not people who make you feel like a burden. And sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming everything they said you couldn't be. I'll see you in the next one. Final word count, 7,089 words. Now give me second version for my second channel, the same title follow, all the things you do in the first one, all the information I give you. Understand? Understood. I'll create a completely different version 2 script for your second channel with same title. Sister said, go find another table at family dinner because I was adopted and gave me the $3,270 bill. Different story, characters, plot twists, and emotional journey. 7,000 words, 44 to 55 minutes. Strong opening hook with suspense and emotional tension. Call to action at the beginning and end. Simple, everyday American English. Curious, emotional, and controversial tone. Different names, avoiding all forbidden names. No forbidden words/phrases. Same winning format structure from the examples. Ready to proceed when you say start now or go ahead. Strat. Sister said, go find another table at family dinner because I was adopted and gave me the $3,270 bill. Version 2. You're not sitting with us. This table is for real family. My sister Brooke said it loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. I stood there frozen, holding the birthday gift I'd spent 2 weeks picking out for her. My brother Tyler laughed. My mom looked at her phone. My dad shook his head like I was the one being difficult. And 23 years of pretending I belonged to this family came crashing down in front of everyone at Romano's Steakhouse. If you've ever been the black sheep in your own family, comment below and tell me where you're tuning in from. And before I tell you how I made them all regret that moment, hit like and subscribe because this story has a twist nobody saw coming. My name is Harper Mitchell. I'm 31 years old. I'm a nurse at Seattle General Hospital. And for most of my life, I believed the lie that I owed my adoptive family everything. That I should be grateful they took me in. That I had no right to complain when they treated me like I was less than. That night at Romano's, something inside me broke. Or maybe it finally healed. Because what happened next set off a chain of events that would expose secrets my family had buried for decades. Secrets about money. About lies. About why they really adopted me in the first place. This is how it all fell apart. And how I finally found out who I really was. I need to start at the real beginning. Not that restaurant. Further back. To the fire. I was 4 years old when it happened. My biological parents, Emma and James Reed, died in a house fire in Tacoma. The investigators said it was an electrical fault. 1 minute, I was sleeping. The next, smoke detectors were screaming and my dad was carrying me outside. He went back in for my mom. Neither of them came out. I lived with my maternal aunt for 6 months after that. Her name was Susan. She was young, maybe 25, and she tried her best. But she was struggling, working 2 jobs, living in a studio apartment. She couldn't take care of a traumatized 4-year-old. That's when the Mitchells appeared. Brett and Caroline Mitchell. They lived in a nice neighborhood in Bellevue. Brett was a lawyer. Caroline ran a boutique. They already had 2 kids. Brooke was 9. Tyler was 7. And they told the social workers they wanted to help a child in need. Everyone thought they were angels. The first year was okay. I was too numb to notice the small things. How Brooke rolled her eyes when I talked. How Tyler ignored me completely. How Caroline introduced me to her friends as the girl we took in after the fire. Not our daughter. Not Harper. Just the girl. By the time I was 7, the pattern was set. Brooke got dance lessons. Tyler got hockey. I got nothing unless I asked. And when I asked, Caroline sighed like I was asking for the world. Harper, honey, we're already stretched thin with 3 kids. Maybe next year. Next year never came. I learned to be quiet, to take up as little space as possible, to be grateful for what I got, which was usually whatever Brooke had outgrown. School was hard. Kids asked why I didn't look like my family, why my last name was Reed, but theirs was Mitchell. They asked about the fire, about my real parents. And when I tried to talk about it at home, Caroline would cut me off. Harper, we don't dwell on the past. You're a Mitchell now. That's what matters. But I wasn't a Mitchell. Not really. I was the charity case they kept around to feel good about themselves. When I was 10, something happened that I didn't understand until much later. We were at a family gathering. Brett's mother, Grandma Ellen, pulled me aside. She was the only person in that family who was ever kind to me. Harper, sweetheart, I need you to know something, she said quietly. Your parents left you money. A trust fund. For when you're older. I didn't really understand what that meant. I was 10. How much? I asked. Enough to take care of you. For college. For your future. She squeezed my hand. Don't let anyone tell you that you owe them for raising you. You don't. They're being paid. Before I could ask what she meant, Caroline appeared and pulled me away. I never got to finish that conversation with Grandma Ellen. And 3 months later, she died suddenly of a heart attack. After her death, nobody ever mentioned a trust fund again. Growing up in that house meant learning to make myself useful. I babysat Tyler when he was younger, even though I was just a kid myself. I did chores without being asked. I never complained. I thought if I was helpful enough, good enough, they'd finally love me. They didn't. High school was when things got really bad. Brooke was the popular girl. Cheer captain. Homecoming queen. She made sure everyone knew I was adopted. Made sure everyone knew I was different. That's Harper, she'd tell people. My parents felt sorry for her. Her real parents died. She said it like it was funny. Tyler was quieter about his cruelty. He just acted like I didn't exist. Walked past me in the halls. Never acknowledged me at school. At home, he'd take things from my room and deny it. Caroline always believed him over me. I worked at a grocery store through high school. Saved every dollar. When it came time for college, I applied to nursing programs and got accepted to the University of Washington. I sat Brett and Caroline down with my acceptance letter and financial aid breakdown. I needed about $12,000 a year after scholarships. Brett didn't even look up from his newspaper. We're paying for Brooke's tuition at USC. That's $40,000 a year. We can't afford another kid's college. But Grandma Ellen said there was money. Your grandmother was confused at the end, see. Arlene interrupted sharply. There's no money, Harper. If you want to go to college, you'll have to figure out yourself. I figured it out. Student loans. Work-study. 3 jobs. It took me 5 years to get my nursing degree because I could only afford part-time enrollment. Brooke graduated from USC debt-free. Tyler went to a private college in California. Also debt-free. I graduated with $70,000 in loans. Nobody came to my graduation. When I was 26, I tried one more time to connect with them. I'd been working as an ER nurse for 2 years. Making decent money. Living in a small apartment. Building a life. I invited them all to dinner for Caroline's birthday. My treat. Caroline spent the entire meal talking about Brooke's engagement to some doctor. About Tyler's new job at a tech company. When I mentioned I'd just been promoted to head nurse in the ER, Caroline smiled vaguely. That's nice, dear. Tyler, tell us about your bonus. I paid the bill. $200 I couldn't really afford. Nobody said thank you. After that, I pulled back. Stopped calling as much. Stopped showing up to every family event. They didn't notice. For the next few years, I focused on work. On building my own life. I dated. Made friends. Tried to forget that I'd spent my whole childhood waiting for love that never came. Then Brooke announced her 30th birthday party. It was going to be at Romano's, the fancy Italian place downtown. Black tie. Open bar. The works. She called me 3 weeks before. Harper, I'm having my birthday dinner on the 15th. You should come. Not, I want you there. Not, it would mean a lot to me. Just, you should come. I almost said no, but something made me say yes. Maybe I was still hoping. Maybe I was just stupid. I bought a new dress. Black, elegant, more than I should have spent. I got my hair done. Bought Brooke a gift. A beautiful silver bracelet she'd mentioned wanting months ago. I took an Uber to Romano's because parking downtown was impossible. When I walked in, I saw my family at a huge table near the back. 20 people. Brett and Caroline. Tyler and his girlfriend. Brooke's fiancé, Wesley. Aunts, uncles, cousins. I walked over, smiling, holding the gift box. "Happy birthday, Brooke," I said warmly. She looked at me like I was a stranger. "You're not sitting with us. This table is for real family." The words hit me like a slap. The whole table went quiet. Then Tyler laughed. A few cousins joined in. Caroline looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Brett adjusted his tie and looked away. "Brooke, that's not funny," I said quietly. "I'm not joking," she said coldly. "We reserved this table for family. You can sit at the bar or something." Wesley, her fiancé, looked uncomfortable. "Babe, come on." "Stay out of it, Wesley. This is family business." Family business. I wasn't family business. I was just business. I stood there, holding that stupid gift, feeling every eye in the restaurant on me. My face burned. My hands shook.
"Fine," I said.
"I'll go." I set the gift on the table and turned to leave. "Wait," Brett called out. "Since you're here, you might as well make yourself useful." I turned back. "We need someone to cover the bill tonight," he said casually. "You're working now, right? Making good money as a nurse?" My stomach dropped. "What?" "The bill," Caroline said impatiently. "We thought you could treat us. For Brooke's birthday. As a thank you." "A thank you for what?" "For raising you," Brooke said. "For giving you a home when you had nothing. The least you can do is buy us dinner." I looked around the table. 20 people. Romano's wasn't cheap. This would be thousands of dollars. "I can't afford that," I whispered. "Sure you can," Tyler said. "Nurses make bank. Stop being cheap." "Harper, don't make a scene," Caroline hissed. "Just do this one thing for us. After everything we've done for you." Everything they'd done for me. Like what? Ignoring me? Excluding me? Making me feel worthless for 27 years? But everyone was staring. Waiting. With shaking hands, I pulled out my wallet. "How much do you think it'll be?" Brett waved his hand. "I don't know. A few thousand probably. You'll be fine." A few $1,000s. My rent was due. I had student loan payments. My car needed new brakes. But I couldn't make another scene. Couldn't prove them right about me being difficult. Ungrateful. Dramatic. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll cover it." Brooke smiled. "Great. Now you can go. We'll call you when the check comes." I walked to the bar. Sat on a stool. Ordered water. Watched my family celebrate without me. The bartender, a guy about my age, noticed my expression. "You okay?" "Not really," I admitted. "Family problems?" I laughed bitterly. "Something like that." He slid me a glass of wine. "On the house. You look like you need it." I thanked him and sipped the wine, watching Brooke open gifts, laugh with her fiancé, pose for photos. I wasn't in any of them. 2 hours later, Caroline came over. "Harper, the check's here. Come handle it." I followed her back to the table. The waiter handed me the leather folder. I opened it. $3,270. My vision blurred. That was more than my rent and car payment combined. That was groceries for 2 months. That was the emergency fund I'd been building. "I can't," I said.
"I'm sorry."
"I can't afford this." Brett's expression darkened. "You promised. You didn't tell me it would be this much. Are you really going to embarrass us?" Caroline's voice was ice. "After we gave you a home? Raised you? This is how you repay us." Tears burned my eyes. Everyone at surrounding tables was watching now. "Please," I whispered. "I can't afford this. It'll wipe out my savings." "You're so selfish," Brooke snapped. "Always thinking about yourself." The words broke something in me.
Selfish. Me.
The girl who worked 3 jobs through college while they paid for her siblings' degrees. The girl who never asked for anything.
who was grateful for scraps. My hands trembled as I pulled out my credit card. My emergency credit card with a $5,000 limit. The one I'd promised myself I'd never use unless I had to. I handed it to the waiter. He took it quickly, probably trying to escape the awkward tension. When he came back, I signed $3,270, plus a $400 tip because I was too shaken to calculate 20% correctly. $3,670. My entire emergency fund.
Gone.
Thanks, Harper, Brooks said sweetly. Same time next month? I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. I just stood up and walked toward the exit. That's when I heard a voice behind me. Excuse me. Mississippi, wait. I turned. A woman stood there. She was maybe 60, with gray hair pulled back in an elegant bun. She wore an expensive suit and carried herself with authority. I'm sorry, she said, but I couldn't help overhearing what just happened.
Great.
A stranger had witnessed my humiliation. I'm fine, I mumbled, trying to leave. No, she said firmly. You're not. And neither is what they just did to you. She pulled out a business card and pressed it into my hand. My name is Margaret Whitmore. I'm an attorney. Call me tomorrow. I think you and I need to talk about your adoption. I stared at the card.
What?
Trust me, she said quietly. Call me. There are things about your family you don't know. Things they've been hiding. Before I could ask what she meant, she walked away, leaving me standing in the restaurant entrance with a maxed-out credit card and a business card that promised answers I wasn't sure I wanted. I went home that night and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. Then I looked at Margaret's card. What could an attorney possibly know about my adoption? The next morning, I called her. Harper, she answered warmly. I'm glad you called. Can you come to my office today? What's this about? I'd rather explain in person, but I promise you it's important. 2 hours later, I sat in her downtown office. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Expensive furniture. Degrees from Harvard Law on the wall. Margaret sat across from me, hands folded. Harper, what do you know about your adoption? Just that my parents died in a fire. My aunt couldn't take care of me. The Mitchells adopted me. Do you know why they adopted you? I shrugged. They said they wanted to help. Margaret opened a file on her desk. They adopted you because of money. My heart stopped. What? Your biological parents left you a trust fund. $1.2 million. The room spun. That's impossible. It's not. Your parents had life insurance. Investments. They set up a trust for your care and education. The Mitchells were approved as adoptive parents and gained access to that trust as your guardians. But Grandma Ellen mentioned money once, and Caroline said that it didn't exist, Margaret finished. She lied. The trust absolutely exists. And over the past 27 years, Brett and Caroline have withdrawn nearly all of it. I couldn't breathe. For what? Margaret turned the file around. Bank statements. Withdrawal records. Expenses. Brooks' college tuition. Tyler's car. Private schools. Vacations. Home renovations. They spend your money on their biological children while making you take out student loans. Rage flooded through me. That's theft. Yes, it is. It's called misappropriation of trust funds. And it's a felony. How do you know all this? Margaret leaned back. Because I was your grandmother Ellen's attorney. Before she died, she came to me with concerns about how Brett and Caroline were managing your trust. She asked me to investigate. I did. And I found years of fraudulent withdrawals. Why didn't she tell me?
She tried.
But then she died suddenly. And I've been trying to find a way to reach you ever since. When I saw what happened last night at that restaurant, I knew it was time. I looked at the documents in front of me. Years of theft. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. My money. Spent on people who treated me like garbage. What can I do? We can file criminal charges. They'll go to prison. We can also file a civil suit to recover what's left, which is about $300,000, plus force them to repay what they stole. They'll lose everything. Yes, Margaret said simply. They will. I thought about Brooks' face last night. Tyler's laugh. Brett and Caroline letting it all happen. Let's do it, I said. All of it. Over the next 2 weeks, Margaret worked fast. She filed criminal charges with the prosecutor's office. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged signatures, fraudulent withdrawals, years of documented theft. She also filed a civil lawsuit demanding repayment of the stolen funds plus interest and damages. Nearly $2 million total. The prosecutor agreed to press charges. Brett and Caroline were arrested at their home. The news spread through the family like wildfire. My phone exploded with calls, texts, voicemails. From Brooke. How could you do this to us? They're our parents. From Tyler. You're destroying the family over money. I can't believe you. From Caroline. Harper, please. We made mistakes, but we loved you. Don't do this. I blocked them all. The only call I answered was from Wesley, Brooke's fiancé. Harper, I need to talk to you.
Why?
Because I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know what they did to you. And I'm leaving Brooke.
What?
I can't marry someone like that. Someone who treats family that way. I'm sorry for what they put you through. He hung up. 2 days later, Brooke called from a blocked number, screaming that I'd ruined her life. That Wesley broke off the engagement. That this was all my fault. I hung up and blocked that number too. The trial moved quickly. Brett and Caroline's lawyers tried to argue that the money was used for household expenses that benefited me too. But Margaret destroyed that argument with receipts. Private school tuition I never attended. A car I never drove. College payments for kids who weren't me. The judge was not sympathetic. Brett got 4 years in prison. Caroline got 3. They were also ordered to pay back $1.8 million, which meant selling their house, their cars, everything. Brooke and Tyler weren't charged since they hadn't known about the fraud. But they'd benefited from it. And everyone knew. Tyler lost his job when the story went public. Brooke's wedding was called off. Their reputations were destroyed. I should have felt satisfied. Instead, I just felt empty. Until Margaret called me into her office one more time. Harper, there's something else. What now? She slid another document across the desk. Your Aunt Susan. The one who took care of you after your parents died. She's been trying to find you. My heart jumped.
What?
She's been looking for years. She wanted custody of you back then, but she was young and financially unstable. The courts chose the Mitchells instead. She never stopped trying to reach you. Where's she? Margaret smiled.
Portland.
And she'd very much like to see you. 2 days later, I drove to Portland. Susan lived in a small house in a quiet neighborhood. When she opened the door, I saw my mother's eyes looking back at me. Harper, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Oh my God. Harper. We stood there crying for what felt like forever. Inside, she showed me photos of my parents. Videos I'd never seen. Stories I'd never heard. I've thought about you every day, she said. I tried so hard to get you back. But by the time I was financially stable, the adoption was finalized. I had no legal standing. I didn't know you were looking. They never told you, did they? Brett and Caroline. They blocked every attempt I made to contact you. More lies. More theft. This time of my family. My history. My connection to the people who actually loved me. Susan and I talked for hours. She told me about my parents. About how much they loved me. About the life I would have had if that fire hadn't happened. Your mother was a teacher, Susan said. Your father was an engineer. They were so proud of you. You have his smile. Her kindness. For the first time in 27 years, I felt connected to something real. Over the next 6 months, Susan and I built a relationship. Real family. The kind that shows up. That cares. That doesn't keep a balance sheet of what you owe them. The trust fund was restored. After legal fees and repayments, I had about $900,000. Enough to pay off my student loans. Buy a house. Invest for the future. But more importantly, I had something I'd never had before. Family. Real family. Susan introduced me to my parents' old friends. To cousins I didn't know I had. To a whole community of people who remembered Emma and James Reed and were overjoyed to meet their daughter. I quit my job and moved to Portland. Bought a house near Susan. Started working at a smaller hospital with better hours. I also started a foundation. the Emma and James Reed Foundation for Adopted Children. It provided legal support for adoptees dealing with abuse or financial exploitation. Because I learned that my story wasn't unique. There were dozens of cases where adoptive parents had stolen from trust funds, where kids were taken in for money, not love. I wanted to help them. A year after that night at Romano's, I was invited to speak at a conference for adoptees. I told my story about the dinner bill, about the betrayal, about finding out the truth. The hardest part, I said to the audience, wasn't the money. It was realizing that the people I spent my whole life trying to please never actually cared about me. They cared about what I could give them, what I represented, the tax breaks, the trust fund, the chance to look like good people. After my speech, dozens of people came up to me, told me their stories, asked for help. I helped everyone I could. The Mitchells never recovered. Brett and Caroline served their sentences. When they got out, they moved to a small apartment across the state. I heard they both worked retail now, living paycheck to paycheck. Tyler moved to another city, trying to escape the scandal. Last I heard, he was working customer service somewhere. Brooke reached out once. A long email, apologizing, explaining, asking for a chance to make things right. I read it once, then deleted it. Some people don't deserve second chances. 5 years later, my life is unrecognizable. I have a career I love, a house I own, investments that will carry me through retirement. But more than that, I have Susan. I have real family, real friends, real love. I'm engaged now. His name is Cameron. He's a teacher. Kind, patient, nothing like the Mitchells. He knows my whole story and loves me anyway. We're getting married next summer. Susan's walking me down the aisle. Sometimes I think about that night at Romano's, about standing there with that $3,000 bill, feeling worthless and small. That bill changed everything. It was the catalyst that exposed the truth, that brought Margaret into my life, that led me to Susan and the family I was always meant to have. Best $3,000 I never should have spent. I learned that family isn't about blood or legal documents. It's about who shows up, who fights for you, who loves you without conditions. The Mitchells taught me what family isn't.
Susan taught me what it is.
And now I spend my time helping other adoptees learn that same lesson, that they don't owe their adoptive families anything, that love isn't debt, that they deserve better. The foundation has helped over 300 kids so far. Kids trapped with families who took them in for wrong reasons. Kids who thought they owed their abusers gratitude. We get them out, get them help, get them connected with real family when possible. Because every kid deserves what I finally found.
Safety, love, home.
The Mitchells thought they could use me forever. Thought I'd always be that scared little girl grateful for scraps. They were wrong. I'm Harper Reed, daughter of Emma and James Reed, niece of Susan Reed. And I'm not afraid anymore. I'm free. And it's the best feeling in the world.
So let me ask you this.
Have you ever had someone in your life make you feel like you owed them just for existing? Someone who used guilt to control you? Drop your story in the comments. You're not alone, and sharing your truth might help someone else find the courage to walk away. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button right now. And if you want more real stories about family betrayal, justice, and finding your real tribe, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss an upload. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they don't owe toxic family members anything. Not gratitude. Not loyalty. Not one more second of their time. Remember, the people who truly love you will never make you pay for that love. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from people who only see you as an investment. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next story.